Welcome to another fantasy happy hour here. Big news, big news. Bill O'Brien has been fired. That's huge for the Texans. About time. We've been waiting for that news forever. It's only about 2 years late. Disappointing playoffs, disappointing season after season. 52-48 record as over however many damn years it was, too many years. I don't think I've seen any positive comments about him, and no one is sad to see him go. So this may be the week, especially since we're playing Jacksonville, that we see that amazing tight end duo just get all sorts of TDs. It could be your big lock of the week for any sort of picks in any fantasy. I'd look for those guys. But yeah, let's just jump into some Sunday football. This is being recorded early in the week, so if anything is postponed, we'll update it in the description or in editing if it ends up being that late. But yeah, Taryn, how did you finish last week there?
Last week went pretty well. I had two different lineups that did min cash in tournaments. I play mostly 3 entry maxes, and I had one that was a Tampa Bay with Brady to Evans, and then I had a Lamar to Mark Andrews stack. I had a few pieces in each of those lineups that wasn't what I wanted, and I pulled Odell Beckham out of one of those lineups just before lock, and it was a bit of a mistake. But we go into a new week with a Vikings win. Huge. That's a huge start, and it caused the other team to fire their coach, which is even better for you. And then, I don't know, I get to hope that we're going to go on a bit of a tear here now. It looks like every 3 players just put up 100 yards every game now for the Vikings. Offense is flying. So moving into this week, they play Sunday night, and of course they get the Seahawks, which is always like a nice refresher to come back to, and you think you get your first win, then you got to play probably the best looking team in the league. But we'll go into that one hot, I think. But let's jump right into this week, and we got some crazy team totals for starters. I seen one at 59.5 for the game total. I'm seeing 55, so all the way across the board. But let's jump in at quarterback and start with the guy that I'm no longer going to try to fade week over week, and that's Dak Prescott against the Giants. He has been throwing like 50, 58 times, 57 times each game. So far, the last 2 specifically, he had 58 and 57 pass attempts. He's averaging 33 DraftKings points. Their defense puts them in like a constant battle every game. And he's averaging about 4 TDs a game, either through the air or with his own legs. In this game, I see him having a few that he runs in, or at least 1 or 2 that he runs in. Due to the Giants not being that great, I don't know if this total will hit way over, or he'll have to throw 58 times. But they're 9-point favorites. They're going to get points early, and I think that's a great option to start the week. And then I like going against your new coach with this big coaching change and actually taking Gardner Minshew. Going against the opposing Texans. They've been giving up tons of yardage through the air. They gave up 200-yard games to the Vikings receivers last week. And he's averaging about 22 DraftKings points, and he got Chark back last week. Looked really good. Threw for 350 and 2 touchdowns. I expect this to be a bit of a high-scoring game, and they're underdogs, so if they fall down, that's usually a good spot to pick your quarterback in. What kind of quarterbacks are you looking at this week?
So I have also Gardner Minshew versus Houston. I'm also going to go back to Deshaun Watson just because I'm kind of curious to see how Romeo Crennel plays the offense this week. I think it could be what we were expecting last week, where it was a big shootout, which it kind of was, but not as big as I thought it would be. I kind of think we could see that this week, although more so on Houston's side, in my unbiased opinion. And then the other cheaper option I really like is Mullins in San Francisco. Threw a few interceptions last week, but overall thought he put up a fair amount of points for being $4,900 or whatever it was. And they're against Miami this week, so I'm looking to him to play him in as hopefully a differentiator in a few of the lineups.
Yeah, watch the news. Garoppolo might be back this week, and Beathard did come into that game late, so just be careful if you're playing Mullins is all I would say. Just make sure he's actually starting. Jumping over to running back, Mike Davis coming in for Carolina. We get one more week without McCaffrey. Per the news, he's ready to come back, but not this week. So you're going to get one more week of Mike Davis against Atlanta, who I just watched on TV give up, I think, a total of 80 yards to the running backs through the first two possessions for Green Bay. So he's been putting up quite a bit, and he's getting all the work around the goal line too. He's only 6,400, and they're dogs in this game against Atlanta, but it's a 55.5 total. He's getting 21 and 23 touches a game, so he's averaging about 22 with McCaffrey out. So I'd go to him. He has a bit of a lean and maybe not look to fade him, but he will be high owned. He was last week too. And then I like going to Kareem Hunt, even though he gets a tough matchup. Nick Chubb just went on IR. So you're going to get the only running back that's probably going to play most of the game, and he does all the passing work as well. So he's only 6,500, and he tends to get all the goal line work. Hilliard and there was another guy that jumped in for a few snaps, but that game was a bit of a blowout, so they were using everybody. And so that's kind of where I lean at running back. And then what are you thinking? Do you like going to your David Johnson, Duke Johnson combination?
No, unfortunately not this week. I've kind of lost hope in David Johnson and picking him, but I'm liking Kenyon Drake. They're playing the Jets, so that could either be great pick, could blow up in my face, and they might end up spreading the runs around couple of the running backs there. And then I think he's back this week, but if he is, I'm looking at James White versus Denver. He's been gone ever since of the personal family issues, but if he's back this week, I would definitely take him. Another cheaper option around $5,000 mark, which I think could really pay off and might be the 1 week you might get him at a decent price.
He is a good option. I've been watching most of the start of that game, and he was getting the ball a ton on the dump offs because you got your two backup quarterbacks in, so they're looking to dump to the running back a lot. So he is a good option. You kind of hope Denver gets down because it looks like they're running Damian Harris, who could be a really good cheap option at running back too. He's just about over 100 now for the Patriots in that game, and he's one of their rookies that came out of college and they haven't used him much. But I'll jump over to wide receiver. Started with a bit of a stack with Prescott. You could go CeeDee Lamb, you could go Amari Cooper. He just seems to be throwing the ball a lot, and I like going to CeeDee Lamb more than Cooper because I don't expect this game to need to come back as much, whereas they're just going to get points early and then just ride Zeke. But CeeDee Lamb's only 6,000. Again, big game total. He's getting about 7 targets a game, and he tends to get looked at for those deep balls. So pass-heavy offense, might as well lean there. And then Juju Smith-Schuster for Pittsburgh. He seems to be the number one guy there. I know Deontay Johnson was getting a ton of targets, but he's the clear number one in this offense. He gets Philly, who hasn't looked great all year. Got ripped up by Kittle last night. And the game total's low, but I think he's their clear number one you can use. And then another stack with Minshew is DJ Chark. He looked really good last week, 8 for 95 and 2 touchdowns, on 9 targets. He's the best receiver on that team, and when they need to play from behind, he's going to be the guy throwing it. And Houston kind of gave up a lot to Jefferson and a lot to Thielen, so he's their guy. He's their Thielen, so I would trust that. Do you have any wide receivers you liked off the hop? Any cheap guys?
Not super cheap, but in the mid-range there. I've been kind of keeping it. I'm still liking that, especially even though he didn't put up as many points as I would have hoped last week. He still got one huge TD was Ayuk. You mentioned to him, and he had quite the TD. What a hurdle. That was pretty impressive to watch. Yeah. And that's something you could stack with, either Mullins or Garoppolo's going to be back with him. Bouncing into the tight end very briefly, Kittle looked like a beast. So I would also stack him with either of the QBs. That looks like it would pay off no matter how much he is. Another one I'm looking at is Judy versus the Patriots. I mean, probably a bit of a gamble because they're not really sure. I don't know who the QB is at this point. They're on their 10th string, and they've been switching it up, and I have no idea. But cheaper option. And then not quite on the maybe middle high end would be Will Fuller. it feels like him and Deshaun are finally starting to connect. There's first 3 weeks is a little bit slow and not much happening, but I feel like that could be a nice price, especially with this new coaching style. Who knows what's going to happen? So I'm kind of interested to see.
Yeah, I jumped right on Kittle too. He was my first list. Watching him last night was just insane. He was carrying the ball. He was running over guys. He actually announced that game before he even played it. He called his own number in the pregame. The only other tight end I had here was Jonnu Smith. Tennessee's going to be kind of injury riddled, and there's kind of guys, most of the guys that were on the COVID list were on defense. So, but I like to go to him in this matchup against Buffalo. I expect it to be high scoring, and Buffalo tends to give up the most in the middle. So that would be the best play, I think, in that game. And then I'll just jump right to defense. I didn't have much else for tight ends. But the defensive side, I like Pittsburgh against Philly. Number one, they're 3,800. Philly just gives up sacks over and over. Wentz did look better last game, but not quite as great. And so I like going there. And then Cleveland against the Colts. I'm kind of waiting on a Phillip Rivers game. He tends to throw picks, and he has that game every once in a while that just looks ugly. The offensive line for the Colts is probably the best offensive line in the league. But the Cleveland defense is really breaking through. They've had 3 sacks a game on average, 4 picks through their first 4, and at least a fumble in every game. So you're looking at a defense who could just have a low-scoring game and get you, that 10-point that you're looking for.
Yeah, no, I agree with you with those parts. I had a bit of a cheaper option. I was kind of cheap out on the defense. Don't really look for. Most of the time, I'm just guessing. But this week I had the Cowboys. They're playing the Giants. Giants are, all the New York teams seem to not be very good every year. I don't know what's going on. They're like Houston right now, so I can't really be chirpy. But $3,100, have them as kind of a bargain. And then another one, KC. They're playing Las Vegas. Don't really know what's going on with that one either, but they always they tend to be getting at least a couple sacks, a couple picks game. And if you get that pick 6, oh baby, you're laughing. So, and then just touching on my tight ends real quick, I had Schultz and Higbee versus the football team. Can't have a bad game if you're playing someone called the football team. Any other ones you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, I just wanted to mention that game. The Kansas City-Vegas game does look to be the highest point total of the week. Vegas has it at 59.5 opening. That's huge. That's a lot of points. So you could probably play both sides of that ball. Derek Carr has actually looked really good so far this year. And then, of course, I like Josh Jacobs. The Patriots were able to run all over Kansas City today in that game, even though they lost. So Josh Jacobs tends to touch the ball between 25 and 30 times. So maybe take a look there and that game and make sure you at least have some pieces of it.
What are your thoughts on Justin Herbert? We haven't really touched on him in any of our episodes, and I'm just kind of curious on what your thoughts were on him.
He's a rookie. He looks like a rookie. Most of his touchdowns seem to be the deep ball, and he'll catch guys running deep. But then he'll throw a couple picks, or he'll fumble the ball, or he'll make a few bad passes. So he's a good option. Who do they get this week?
They're playing the Saints.
Yeah, that's a tough D to kind of go into, but you could look to that and run with it. I guess Keenan Allen's getting 10 targets a game, roughly, so maybe lean to stack there. Or just take a long shot with one of those receivers like Guyton or Johnson. Guyton seems more common to use, and just hope you hit with it.
And with Sam Darnold questionable still versus the Cardinals this week, are you looking at any sort of depth receivers on the Cardinals to get a few more looks, especially if they go up early as some bargain picks or even some bargain running backs?
You could go to Kenyon Drake in that matchup. I think that would be the best play if you expect this game to kind of really get out of hand. I like playing Kyler Murray, maybe even like naked, no other receivers with him, because he tends to rush for a lot of the touchdowns. The Jets have been good against the run. That's one area they're not too bad on defense. So I would lean towards Kyler Murray in the passing game, and hope you can maybe hit with like a Christian Kirk and not waste all your capital on DeAndre Hopkins in that scenario.
Perfect. Yeah, if you guys know what you're going to be picking, if you have any agreements, disagreements, think we don't know what we're talking about, we probably don't, throw it in a comment. At least subscribe, help us out. Anything helps at this point. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.